right, let's talk about the Strait and the economy. President and founder of Eurasia Group and G0 Media, Ian Bremmer, is with us. All right, so you say this blockade, Ian, is not working.
Well, it's not going to force the Iranians to give the outcome that the Americans want. So far, since the blockade's been announced, there's been negotiations through the Pakistanis, and it's the Americans that have been climbing down, and the Iranians have been holding firm. And let's keep in mind that if you thought a blockade was going to work, you would have started it when the strait was closed, as opposed to suspending sanctions on the Iranians, allowing them to make so much more money for a month while this war was going on. So at the very least, for the blockade to have any shot, it's going to have to be imposed pretty broadly and tightly for quite some time. And the selective fury of this blockade so far, letting a number of Iranian ships through, those that are destined for China because the Americans don't want that problem, all of that undermines the efficacy of this policy.
The number of ships going through the strait right now, I think one was yesterday's number, all of one. The global economy relies on oil. We have our own oil, but our oil prices rely on global oil prices. What are we looking at? I mean, are we looking at a realistic, if we're looking at the stock markets, are they pricing in future pain?
The stock markets they're clearly very optimistic, very enthusiastic. Most of the growth of the stock market has been a small number of tech and tech-related companies, and it's a belief that AI is truly transforming productivity and the economy. And frankly, given how much faster in capabilities AI has grown than I would have expected a couple of years ago, there's a lot of reason for that enthusiasm. I'm not a stock market watcher, but certainly in terms of the pain that the global economy will take, it's not just oil. So many different components here. I was looking at aluminum earlier today. 10% of global aluminum market has been essentially suspended because of the strait. And you've got smelters that have been damaged in the GCC and the Gulf. They're going to need to be repaired. You're going to start to have hoarding and export bans of relevant critical minerals as a consequence of that from China, from other countries around the world. The plastic challenges with all of the knock-on limitations of those manufactured goods like medical supplies, IVs, for example, syringes. Like, you're going to see expenses there go up, shortages increase. We can go on and on. This is a global economic issue. And every day that the blockade is extended, every day that the Iranians continue to disrupt ships going through is another several days to week plus the global economy will have very significant damage. So clearly, we're not ready for all of that yet.
This is an image out of Tehran. This is Iran's fist around the Strait of Hormuz. Is it crazy to worry about the knock-on effects here, the global economy suffering so much, and that other nations decide to get involved in this on behalf of one side or the other, and we break out into conflict that involves more than just Iran and the U.S. and Israel?
Globally, I think the answer to that is no. The American allies in NATO want nothing to do with this, never mind Japan, South Korea. They want the strait reopened, and they are prepared to start sending ships when you have an agreement and a ceasefire, so they're not at risk. They're not on one side or the other.
How long are they willing to wait?
They don't have the military capabilities to want to make themselves vulnerable. So it's not a question of how long they're willing to wait. The Russia-Ukraine war has gone on for 4 years. There's been huge knock-on consequences for the Europeans. They're providing a lot of support for Ukraine, but they understand that ultimately this is not a war that they're capable of winning. Right. And the same thing has an analogy in the Middle East. Ultimately, it is the United States that will decide to end this war. And it's the Iranians that have the ability to disrupt that outcome. And it's the Israelis that are fighting with the Americans who, if they choose at some point to re-engage because implementation of any coming deal doesn't really work, they can veto it. They can disrupt it. Frankly, Iranians can do that as well. The government might accept it, but you could imagine a hardline faction or even local commanders deciding that they want to scuttle the deal. So I think the concern that I have, Katie, is much more about the chaotic nature of the actors in the region than it is about an expansion of this war with direct combatants outside of those belligerents.
The president is clearly watching television today, perhaps right now, because he just put out this Truth Social post. Please be advised that I am possibly the least pressured person ever to be in this position. I have all the time in the world, but Iran doesn't. And I'm going to have to leave it there. Thank you, as always, for being with us.